So we'll go ahead and get started. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Gail Johnson. I'm the Mountain Regional Sales Manager for Lochinvar. And what you see on your screen here is our new Excalibur tankless. So this unit, it's not advancing, hold on. So this unit will come in 3 separate sizes. So it'll be the 160,000 BTUs, 180, and the 199,000 BTU. Our minimum BTU on this unit is 9,000 BTUs. So this unit has a 22-to-1 turn down ratio. That max flow rate of this unit is 10.5 gallons per minute. So at a 70-degree rise, it's 5.8 gallons per minute. That's kind of industry standard around the board with all the other different manufacturers. That flow rate matches exactly what their flow rates are through their units across the board. For activation for this unit, it's 0.4 gallons per minute. But once it is activated, it can modulate down to 0.26 gallons per minute. So if they have a small draw for hot water, if they're shaving, something like that, that's still going to deliver hot water continuously to that fixture. So this is a 0.95 UEF unit, so it will qualify for all the Energy Star federal rebates as well as any gas company rebates that you would have out there. And this is an ultra low NOx unit, so it applies with all of the ultra low NOx standards in like Utah and California. But I know in Montana, you guys don't have to worry about that at all. So this is kind of features we're going to be covering through the presentation. But I wanted to kind of give you a look of what this unit looks like. So with this unit, we do have the 2-inch vent up here on top. Let me annotate my mouse real quick so you can actually see me moving it. So we do have the 2-inch connections up here on top. One thing you'll notice that's very different about this unit is our heat exchanger design right here. So instead of having a primary secondary design, we have one large water tube heat exchanger design, which I'll go into details on that in a few more slides down there. But one of the biggest changes that this unit has against anybody else there in the market is this cartridge that you see down here on the bottom of this unit. So that is our integrated filtration. We call it our X3 scale prevention technology. So the X3 will come, you can buy this unit 2 different ways. You can buy it with the X3 filtration, which would be the X3, or you can buy it without it. It just has this little bypass, which is called the M. So with the X3 that's built into that unit, we do not require these units to be flushed. Because we have that built-in filtration, we do not require it to be descaled every year. With that filtration that's built into that unit, that heater will maintain like new performance for the life of that unit. It's going to extend the life of that unit up to 3 times versus an unprotected unit. That cartridge does come with the unit itself. So with this unit, it is a 15-year warranty on the heat exchanger, 5 years on the parts, and 1 year labor. So we have with the X3 version, we have no hard water exclusions for the X3. So you could be like my house here in Utah. I'm 42 grains hardness and 600 parts per million TDS. It doesn't matter. We throw it in that cartridge that's there. It's a TAC filter. So we're changing the molecular structure of that water. And so the hard water minerals will pass through the unit and will not stick to anything that's there. So with that, we do not require that isolation valves are put on this unit. As you'll see right here on the hot side coming out, there is a pressure valve that is there. That comes inside the box. So it has a little port there that just screws into it. If you buy it in the M version, there's a cap that comes already installed on it there. So you do not need to have isolation valves on this. If your customers still want to sell their customer a yearly maintenance on the unit and flush, there is a flushed programming inside of the unit, so you can put it into flush mode. You can still flush the unit and do all that. You're not going to hurt anything. We just don't require it. So this filtration that's in here is really there to protect your contractor from the homeowner killing the unit. My life before Lochinvar was in the tankless industry. I used to work for Norwich Tankless Water Heaters as their national account manager. And I can't tell you how many times people have had heat exchangers that failed because customers didn't put salt in their softeners. They didn't change out their tripolyphosphate filters every 6 months to a year. And so the unit would scale up, it would fail, and then they would blame the contractor because, hey, you put this in, it's on you. This X3 is going to protect the contractor from the customers killing the tankless water heater. So this is showing with and without the X3 technology. So this is done in our test site in Roswell, New Mexico. This is done between 50 to 80 grains of hardness. Their water there is already hard enough, but when they do their testing, they're adding 40 pounds of salt per hour into the water that's recirculating through these units. So they get up to 80 grains hardness. So the one, the X3 that you see on the right side, that's that tube with 19 years of simulated usage. And then the one here on the left was about 5 years of simulated usage before it scaled up and failed. So that is what that X3 technology will do inside of that unit. So any questions on the filtration part of the unit?
We live?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gail, this is Sean in Billings.
Yeah.
Hey, is there a replacement interval on that scale cutter, or is it a non-consumable technology?
It's a non-consumable technology. So it's like a salt to softener.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so that cartridge will last the lifetime of that unit. So you do not need to change that out.
And Gail, I also see, this is Brett Weston. I see that there's an option to put a heater on those, on that scale unit on that X3. Is that what, for outside applications, or what are you recommending that for?
So the X3 cartridge is built to just connect directly to the tankless water heater itself.
Right. But in the accessories, there is an option to put a heater on it.
Oh, so that little coil that goes on there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's to add to the freeze protection. So if it is in an area where it could freeze, you could buy that accessory to put it around that for freeze protection.
For like a outdoor installation or something in a, like in Phoenix or something, where they put a lot on outside.
Yeah, so if you're putting it in an outdoor situation, or if it's sitting in a cabin and you're winterizing it and you want that extra protection there, you can do that. So like in Texas, they see freak freezes every once in a while. That would be something there to protect that.
Okay.
So in a cabin situation, is that something we need to tell the contractor as far as winterizing? Does he need to take that scale cartridge off and drain it?
Yes, he would need to take that. So he could just take that cartridge off, and I mean, they could take it with them, or they could put that coil around it. If they're not going to have any heat in that building, if they're going to put, they're just going to drain the system down, I would suggest either taking that cartridge with them, because it'll get the water out of it, but there's still going to be a little bit of water in there. So you're not going to be able to get it all out of there. And with this heat exchanger too, so we have a 15-year no questions asked on the heat exchanger. So water quality doesn't matter. We also do not have a burn hour warranty associated with this heat exchanger. So this heat exchanger is just a straight 15 years. I know with other manufacturers, it's 15 years or 9,000 burn hours, whichever comes first. So you could run this unit 24/7, 365. You're not going to avoid any warranty with burn hours on this unit either. So as I said before, the X3 configuration, it comes with the X3 cartridge loose in the box. And it also comes with that 3/4 NPT pressure valve that's in there. And isolation valves, again, are not necessary on that. If you buy it in the M configuration, which is non-filtration, you would need to field supply that pressure relief valve on the isolation valves. You can add an X3 cartridge later on if they wanted to, but that heat exchanger is still going to have water quality requirements if you buy it as the M. If you buy it as the X3, it does not have any water requirements. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So talking about the heat exchanger, this is a very heavy duty heat exchanger. It's 316L austenite stainless steel. It's a water tube design that's built into that unit. So this unit will be about 15 to 20 pounds heavier than any other tankless on the market because of how heavy duty that heat exchanger is right there. So as you'll see right here, there's your inlet and your outlet, or sorry, yeah, inlet and outlet that are there. So there's only 2 welds on this whole heat exchanger. So it is a water tube heat exchanger. So we're coming in on this one here on the right side. It's going around the outside. We're condensing, and then it's coming back into that center and then exiting through there. So that's all 316L stainless steel with that heat exchanger. So we only have 2 welds, which are right here and right here in that whole entire heat exchanger. So with other primary, secondary heat exchangers, quite a few welds that are built into those heat exchangers, where this only has the 2 welds on it. So any questions on that heat exchanger at all? All right. So the burner that we have on here, it's pretty much just like one of the night burners that you would see through like a 199 night boiler. So this has that fiber mesh, and we have our run cool technology that's built into this burner. So this burner you can touch with your hands. You're not going to damage that burner whatsoever. If any of you've been to the Lochinvar factory and seen our burner demonstrations where they have the burner going, they shut it off and they grab it with their hand. It has that run cool technology that's built into that burner. So it looks like we have a question here real quick. What's the pressure drop in the heat exchanger? I believe it's 5 pounds, but I would have to double check that for you. I can check that and get back with you on that.
Gail,
Yeah.
I looked that up yesterday for in case we need to size any storage tank, and it's 42 feet ahead at 5 GPM
Okay.
is pressure drop, if that's kind of what Colby was looking for.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So with the ease of install and serviceability on this unit, you can convert this unit into an outdoor unit, but I wouldn't recommend that for Montana at all. This does have a field convertible kit to go from natural gas to LP, which is included in every single unit, which we'll cover that here in just a little bit. With 2-inch PVC, you can go 75 feet. 3-inch PVC, you can go 150 feet. The gas connection on this unit is a 1/2 inch on the bottom of that unit. The board that you see right here, there's one screw that removes that board, and then there's this little clip. You just push that down, and that whole board controller and everything is going to flip down. So you'll have access to the pump, to the gas valve right here. Right here is where you would change that LP, change it to LP if you needed to. It's very built around serviceability. So if you did need to get in there, that whole board just flops right down. Makes it very, very easy to get in there. The cord that is attached to this unit is an outdoor rated cord, although we won't be putting it outside in Montana. But then you can also cascade and common vent up to 12 units with just the cable that is provided with inside of the unit. So each unit does come with a communication cable. If you're just installing one unit, you would just toss that. But that communication cable, you can actually put 12 of those together, which we'll talk about a little more in the presentation. So this is how the tanklesses come. They're 4-banded inside of these boxes. And then when you open the box, it is a very dense foam insulation that is around there. There's styrofoam insulation.
Hey, Gail?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you for a sec here?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's minimum inches of water column for natural gas and LP?
It's 3.5 for natural gas, 4 for LP, and then maximum's 10.5 for natural gas and 14 for LP.
Okay.
So when you take the box off that unit, you're going to see up here at the top is that X3 cartridge. Right next to it is the pressure relief valve. And then right here you have the quick connect cable. And then there's a bunch of different screws, so wood screws, masonry screws and everything on there. The bracket for the unit does come separate. The holes on here on the left and the right side are 16-inch on center. So if you're putting it on a stud wall, you can just mount the bracket and then hang the unit. Or if you're putting it on a masonry wall or a concrete wall, you can mount that bracket and then hang the unit on that bracket itself. But inside of that manual bag, you're going to have the install manual, the service parts, the registration card, the warranty sheet. When you pull that top off, there is where you'll find that gas conversion kit that's in there as well. But I've seen this packaging in person, and it is very, very dense. So if you have contractors that are carrying these on their trucks, you do not have to worry about this getting dented or dinged. It is packed up very, very well. So any questions so far before we jump into the install side? So install, this is going to install just like other tanklesses out there in the industry. So you can use 2-inch PVC, CPVC, polypropylene. On here too, it does show that you can use ABS as a vent material for these units. I personally do not like ABS as a vent material, but if you have contractors that are wanting to use ABS as a vent material, it is approved for that. The caveat between that is all of those need to be solid core piping. So with PVC DWV, just has to have the D2665 stamp on it, but be solid core and not foam core on that. For the venting, we're 2-inch on 75 feet, 3-inch 150 feet. For every 90 that you add, you subtract 5 feet. And for every 45, you subtract 2.5 feet on those. And the top of the unit just has the band clamps that are around the exhaust and the intake. So you would just slide your pipe down in there. You can tighten down those clamps. There are these optional self-tapping screws that come with the unit that you can actually put through the side of that and into the vent pipe there if you're wanting to lock that in there so no one can undo that and pull it straight out without having to take that self-tapping screw out. It's not required, but it is an added feature that they have there to prevent those vent pipes from coming out if someone was trying to rip it out of the unit itself. So then when you're making your cutoffs to go inside of that, they want that to be flush up there. I can't tell you how many times I've seen bad cuts put into the top of any tankless unit and you'll start seeing water spitting out the side from that condensate, and you'll start getting flue gases in the area. They do not want you using more than 5 90s in a vent system. But again, it's 5 feet and 2.5 feet for that venting. So those connections on top of that unit is 2-inch for the intake and the exhaust. If you are going to go to 3-inch pipe off of there, we want you to try to do that within the first 12 inches coming off of that unit. So you can run this unit as a single pipe or a 2-pipe. If you run a 2-pipe, just like any other unit, it's going to breathe a lot better than if you're pulling from different pressure zones. But if you are going to go to 3-inch, make sure you're doing that on the vertical, not on the horizontal, because we do want that pipe graded back to the unit. So the condensate that's in that line is going to drain back to that unit. If you do that 2 to 3 increaser on the horizontal, you're going to create a big pool of condensate in there, and you could see some error codes flashing down the line on that. So any questions on venting so far? All righty. So with this unit, this is the National Fuel Gas Code clearances. So this is the same for every manufacturer that's out there. So in a direct vent and then other than direct vent on there. So you're 1 foot from a clearance to a window or a door that can be opened. The biggest questions I always get on this are J and K down here. So clearance to a non-mechanical air inlet supply of a building or the combustion air inlet to any other appliance. So if you're venting this out next to a furnace, you only need to be 1 foot away from their intake. But if you are venting this and there's a mechanical air inlet, which means we're bringing combustion air inside to a room where you have an 80% furnace or something like that, you need to be either 3 feet above or 10 feet horizontally away from that. So and to get the 3 feet above, you can come out and you can snorkel up. We're fine with that. But you just need to meet those clearances on those. So any questions on clearances? All righty. So just types of installs, the horizontal, single pipe, 2 pipe on that unit, going up through the roof with 2 pipes and a single pipe. These are approved for those flat wall terminations, whether it's a 2-inch or a 3-inch IPEX coming out. When these are piped in there, just make sure that our exhaust is coming out the exhaust and the intake is coming out the intake. In my years of tankless, I've seen 2 doors blown off of units because they were piped backwards and it was recirculating, and it recirculated enough of non-combusted flue gases that finally blew the actual doors off of those units. Also make sure that you are not configuring it this way because you will start sucking in flue gases on that if you have it upside down like that. So then other concentrics, the bazooka concentrics, you can use those ones as well. Just remember that your intake is coming through the middle, or sorry, your exhaust is the middle and your intake is off to the side. And then if you are going up with 2 pipes up and out of the roof, if you are having your exhaust above your intake like this, you only need to be 2 feet apart. If you're coming out of a flat roof and they're on the same level here, then they need to be 3 feet apart coming out like that.
Hey, Gail.
Yeah.
Sean here. I noticed a couple of these pictures are showing the exhaust being snorkel.
Yes.
Is that something they're going to recommend? That's not usual practice, just snorkeling the intake.
Yeah, so with these units, they'll, if you need to get that separation and snorkel up, you can do that, no problem.
I mean the gooseneck down, I'm sorry.
You mean like this right here?
Yeah, on the exhaust, they're showing that gooseneck, and that's not really standard practice. With most condensing appliances, you want that going straight out, and then you gooseneck your intake.
Yeah, with these, they're wanting you to 45 off that exhaust, and then if you're going to intake through that roof like that, they want you to 90 it off. So you're finishing with a 45 coming out like that. The reason for that is to block any direct wind coming in through that, and then especially going out the roof with rain and snow, that's just protecting it from that rain and snow coming straight down it.
Are they going to require that on a concentric vent kit?
No, so if you're doing a concentric kit like this,
Yeah.
no, you just leave it the way it is with that concentric kit because there are some safeties built in back there for wind.
Okay.
Any other questions on venting? All right. Well, then we'll jump into the gas supplies then. So the natural gas minimum is 3.5. Inlet maximum is 10.5. Sorry, propane I misquoted before. Propane's 8 inches of water column, and inlet max is 13 inches of water column on that. So this is the National Fuel Gas Code gas pipe sizing. This is at a 1/2 inch drop. I know everybody's usually pretty good at sizing gas lines on that. But we just want to make sure that we do have enough gas. You know, with 199,000 BTUs, we want 199,000 BTUs delivered to the bottom of the unit. These do have a negative pressure gas valve, air gas mixing fan, so we are in that negative pressure, but we are not going to be able to pull 199,000 BTUs worth of gas through a 1/2 inch line that's 100 feet long. So this is the gas conversion kit. So this will be in the box with every single unit. Every single one of those comes and they are labeled. So this one will say LPG, the natural gas one that you pull out will come saying natural gas. So all of these units come as a natural gas unit. If you need to convert it to propane, that kit that's in there. So you have this diaphragm that's here, this plastic retainer. So when you put the new diaphragm in there, that plastic retainer just goes around it and holds it on there as you put the gas manifold back on. This conversion label just lets anyone know that that unit has been converted to propane. And then there's those conversion instructions that are in there. Converting it to propane is pretty easy. You just pull that manifold off the front, you switch out that diaphragm and put it back on. And then there's some programming that I'll show you here in just a minute. But any questions on that gas conversion kit? All right. So that pressure valve that comes with the X3 units, there is that on the hot side coming out, there is a port there that just screws into. So again, you do not need to have the isolation valves that are there. When you run your discharge pipe off of there, we just wanted at least a minimum or a maximum of 6 inches off the floor coming out. We don't want it to go down into a drain, down inside of a P-trap or anything like that, but the maximum off the ground is 6 inches. And then these units are going to condensate. So we do have a condensate trap that is built into the unit itself here. It does have a 1/2 inch MIP connection coming out of the bottom. You can use any plastic pipe, whether it's PVC, PEX, whatever you're going to use for that drain line coming out. We do not want any metal pipe fittings attached to that unit. I've seen multiple tankless units where they had like a PEX fitting adaptation on there, and you know, within 6 months to a year, that acidic condensate has rotted that out. So any type of plastic fitting on there is what we're looking for on that condensate. With that condensate trap that's built into that unit, you do not need to add a condensate trap on the outside of that unit. So whatever piping you're using and running it down to a floor drain or to a condensate pump, make sure you have plenty of grade going down there. If you are going into a P-trap, if you are going into a floor drain, please do not stick that all the way down inside of the drain to where you're down to the bottom of the P-trap, because it will lock that system up and you'll get condensate bagging up into the heat exchanger. Same thing with the condensate pump. Make sure that tube that's going in there isn't down into the water that's inside of the pump. It'll cause that same thing. So I don't know if you guys have ever been out to a unit where it's had a condensate back up and it sounds like the water is boiling inside of that unit. But that's the sound you will get when condensate backs up inside of those heat exchangers. If you are using a condensate neutralizer with these units, if it's going on the horizontal, you're going to see that, you know, it pretty much is an extra P-trap. So what we suggest is when you come out of the condensate drain here, if you just add a T and kind of put a little vent up off to the side, so you can introduce air into that system so it can flow through that neutralizer easy, and it will not lock up that system. So any questions on that condensate piping? All righty. So with the display on here, typical display, it's built into the front of the unit here. It's going to show you that when water is flowing through there, when the pump is in operation, when it's burning, the two different pump timers that are built into it, all those different items that you're going to see on that display. So these units are going to come set from the factory at 120 degrees. You can turn these up to 140 degrees, but the customer would have to go into the programming to turn that up to 140 degrees. It does come set from the factory at a 120. That is there to protect your contractor and also the manufacturer that we had it set at 120, that we weren't any higher than that can cause scalding. So on the install, it's pretty easy. It's going to come set at 120. You can change these. So if you go in that setting, you can change it from 120 up to 140. It's going to come set at Fahrenheit. You can change it to Celsius. The recirculation interval time, it's going to come set at default at 10 minutes. So once that pump turns off, it's not going to allow that pump to turn on again for another 10 minutes, even if the temperature drops below what the temperature drop, it's going to lock it out for at least 10 minutes. The pump activation temperature is going to come set default at 20 degrees. So that if you have it set for 120, it's going to recirc until it gets to 120, then it's going to shut off. And then once it drops 20 degrees, so once it hits 100 degrees in that thermistor on the incoming side of the unit, then it'll kick that pump on again and recirculate till it gets back to 120 degrees. So with, there's also the recirculation mode. So you can set it to recirc or not recirc. So straight out of the box, it's going to come with the pump turned off. So you can install this just like a normal tankless water heater without the pump if you want to. It'll work just fine. It's not going to be an issue. So if you have somebody that doesn't want to do a recirc in their house, you can install it without it. But there are two recirculation types. We've got a dedicated return line and a crossover valve. So that crossover valve is going to go on that furthest fixture away. One thing that I always like to train people on with crossover valves is inside of those crossover T's, we're only going to allow anywhere from 95 degrees to 98 degrees to pass through that T before that T is going to shut off. And once the pump feels that back pressure, it's going to shut off. We don't want to be pushing any hotter water than that back because we are pushing it back through the cold line. We don't want to put 120 degree water into a toilet or anything like that. So with those crossover valves, it is going to only be at that temperature. So, and then that last one there at the bottom is that Title 24, which is a California law. I know you guys have a lot of people that are moving into the state from California, and if they had a tankless in California before in a newer home, the Title 24 is a push button activation. So in our accessories, you'll see that there's a little push button activation. So in the state of California, you cannot have a recirc that is gone off of a timer or learning or anything like that. It has to be push button activated from somewhere inside the house. So we have those little buttons that can go in the bathroom, in the kitchen, wherever you want to have it. When they push the button, it'll start the recirc pump. It will recirc until it gets to temperature, and then it'll shut off, and it will not recirc again until somebody presses that button again. So any questions on those settings that I just went over? So then setting this unit up for elevation. So we can go to 10,100 feet, and this will pop up as soon as you plug in the tankless unit. It'll walk you through this. So you can set it. So default, it's going to come from 0 to 2,000 feet. You would set your elevation from there. Gas type's always going to come set at natural gas. The power frequency is always going to come at 60 hertz. 60 hertz is for the US. That 50 hertz is for Canada. In certain places in Canada, they're on 50 hertz. Cascade, you would, if you are going to have 2, 3, 4, up to 12 units there, you would identify that unit of where it is in the cascade at that time. And then during that too, you were going to tell it if it is the parent heater or it's one of the child heaters in there. This is where you'd also go if you wanted to change that unit to activate that descale mode. That descale mode is going to come up. It's going to let you flow solution through that unit for a certain amount of time. So it's going to let it go through the heat exchanger. It's going to let it go through the bypass. It's going to recirc until it says that it's that the flush is complete, and then it's going to shut off, which I believe is between 45 minutes to an hour on that. And then the gas valve offset setting mode, when you change that from natural gas to propane, it's 1500. It'll come default at that 1500 elevation setting. If you change it to propane at elevation, then you would need to change that to that 2000. That's also in the propane conversion instructions to do that as well. And then that gas valve setting mode, you can actually force this unit if you wanted to go into combustion mode for a CO2 check, or put it into minimum combustion for the manifold pressure check. So on the exhaust side of this, there is a port that you can pull off and put your analyzer in, coming straight off the top of that unit. So any questions on any of those settings?
Hey Gail, do you require a combustion analysis on these or no?
No, we do not require a combustion analysis, but you know, there's a lot of guys who like to make sure that everything's set correct. So that's what that's built in there for, is that. All right, so we'll jump into the pump timers. So with this unit, it is just set up to have just a simple 2 pump timer built into it. I know that a lot of people have gone to multiple different timers, being able to see what the customer's usage is in the house and all those things that kind of complicate things, and that sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So with this unit, they've set it up so it's just 2 separate timers, so you can set it up however you want to. So if you've got customers that want to have pump starting at 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then from 4 p.m. to midnight, or you can run it, have both timers set up from 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. You could have that recirc running 24/7. You can set it up, those 2 timers, however you want them to overlap or not overlap. But it's just a very simple pump time to make sure that they have hot water during the times that they typically use hot water. So any questions about that timer? I mean, it is dead, just 2 timers. That's it. There's nothing fancy about it. They just made it as simple as possible. All righty. So with the pump mode, so when you have a dedicated recirc line, you're going to pipe it just like this. You're going to bring your return line back into the cold side of that unit. You will want to have a check valve on the supply coming back to that unit. But you are going to be piping that right back into the cold side of the unit. So all that water comes in, goes through the cold side, through that filter, and then up through the unit and out. So anything that's coming back to that cold side does get reintroduced to that filtration. So every time you're recircing, it's going back to that filtration every single time. So with a 3/4 inch line, the internal pump can go 500 feet. For a 1/2 inch line, it can run 200 feet. If you're doing a crossover tee, it's about 350 feet with that crossover tee, because you've got half of that could be 1/2 inch, half of that could be 3/4. So you're about 350 feet with that crossover tee. And also make sure when you are recircing that you do have an expansion tank on the system, because we are recircing and we are going to have thermal expansion. And so we do need that expansion tank on those units.
Hey, Gail.
Yeah.
Does this unit come with the crossover valve?
It does not come with the crossover valve. It is a separate accessory.
Okay.
So with the crossover tee, you're just adding that furthest fixture away that's on there. So all you need to do is just plumb your cold line in, hot line out. That crossover tee is going to take care of the rest on there. So you do not need to have any other special plumbing with that. You're just coming straight in and straight out on that. So any questions about, so the crossover T that we sell, it is that separate accessory, it doesn't come in the box. So that would be another part that you would need to stock for that unit. And then for the Cascade, this is a nice little plumbing diagram for that. So you've had your parent unit here on the far right, and then these cables will just connect each individual unit together. You're going to bring all of the colds in to the units off of the main cold trunk, and then you're going to have all your hots leaving into that same cold trunk. So if you are recircing, you're going to bring that building return back into the cold side, just like this. So whichever unit is the primary unit, is the unit that the internal pump is going to run off of. So if you have 4 set up like this, and this unit right here is in that first position, then the recirc will be running through that unit. Every 8 hours of burn time, it's going to switch off which one's primary, secondary, third, and fourth. So if this unit here jumps into being the secondary unit, then that pump will kick on, and that will be the pump for the system until this unit becomes the primary. So you're getting even usage through all of the units and the pumps through all of those units as it is cascading back and forth between the units. Does that make sense? So you can cascade 12 together. You can common vent them all too and common vent them out. Those cables again are included in there. Those settings that we looked at earlier, you would just activate and tell it which unit it is within that cascade. And any heater within that bank of units can be the parent unit, just it doesn't need to be the one on the left or the one on the far right. So you can set it up however you want to on that. And then sorry. So with that, this is kind of what I went over with the recirculation. It'll be the whichever one is in the number 1 operation. You can again do 12 up to that. And the heaters are going to rotate between all of those different units. So it's either weekly or 8 hours of burn time, which they switch off back and forth. So, but that is everything I had for you guys on the new tankless. Any questions on anything that we covered today?
Hi, Gail, Sean here.
Hey, Sean.
So I've had a couple people ask, a couple of contractors ask, when are we going to have any installer service training?
We can have install training. I'm setting up a time with Nathan now here in the next month or two to get me up there to be able to do install training in person, or we can do virtual install training anytime.
Okay. I think, this thing we just went through would be pretty helpful to the guys that are just putting them in, as far as instead of just giving them the book, the manual.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'd be more than happy to do more meetings like this if we have to do them individually with each individual contractors. If we want to set group trainings, we can do that as well. Whatever you guys want to do on that side.
Yeah, most of the guys here get along pretty good. We can get them all in a room without any blood. So units without recirc pumps, I think those are being planned to be rolled out. I'm not sure when.
Yeah, so Q4 of this year, our units will be coming out without the recirc pumps, and then our commercial and rack systems will be coming out then as well.
Saying end of this year?
Yeah, end of this year is when those will be coming out. So this is our first launch with, this is kind of like the Cadillac with the pump and everything inside of it. And then later this year, there'll be more, non-pump, builder grade, commercial rack systems. All of that'll be coming then.
Do these have good enough temperature control that you do not require a mixing valve?
Yes. Yeah. So these units do have the Indonesian throttling and mixing valves in them. They're very, very high quality ones. And so basically what we're doing inside of that heat exchanger, so if that unit's set at 120, we're producing anywhere from 130 to 140 inside of that heat exchanger, and then we're tempering it down as it leaves. So we are not going to let water leave that unit unless it is at temperature. So on initial startup, yes, water will go through it that won't be there, but once it gets to temp and once it's running, will be maybe a degree fluctuation between there. But you're not going to see fluctuations or anything like that with that temperature. It will be constant at 120 or whatever you have that set temperature at leaving that unit. And these units too, you're not going to find any of them in any big box store. You're not going to find them in Home Depot or Lowe's. You're not going to find them online. They are branded Excalibur Lochinvar units. So you are not going to see any pricing or anything like that online either.
So the A.O. Smith and State versions are not going to be, they're not going to release those to.
Yeah, so their version is called the Adapt.
Okay.
So ours, we specifically made sure that we named ours completely different than theirs. So it's a completely different separate unit. So it is not confused with the A.O. Smith side.
But as far as you know, they also are not selling to the big box stores on their site.
They could be releasing it to Lowe's. I'm not sure. Because I know Lowe's has some of the Takagi ones on there, and they also have Noritz and Renai and a couple others too. I'm not 100% sure that they are going to be bringing this one on yet, but I wouldn't put it past them to not put that in online. But typically with Lowe's and all that, it's all on, like Lowe's and Home Depot, all their tankless are online. They don't stock tankless in the store. So it is a tankless shipping to their home. Any other questions, guys? But the thing that really sets this tankless apart from every other tankless out there is that filtration that's built into these units with that X3 technology. Not having a burn hour requirement on that heat exchanger, and no questions asked on the water quality is a huge selling point with these units. So I'm sure every single one of you has run into that problem where they did have filtration or they didn't have filtration, the heat exchanger failed, and it's the contractor's fault or our fault that it failed, and we need to take care of it. This is going to protect them from things like that happening and protect them from callbacks on those units.
Lander, Wyoming.
What was that?
Lander, Wyoming. Many heat exchanger failures from water quality.
Yeah, this unit has stood up very well to really nasty water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, Gail. How many installs have you guys had out there? I mean, as far as testing.
Testing, they did a bunch of different installs across the United States. They had 6 different units there in Roswell that were testing. Roswell is where they really beat the crap out of those for the last year and a half. With, we're looking at 80 grain hardness water, 1,000 parts per million TDS. I mean, it's pretty nasty water they were throwing through those units. I've got about probably 30 of these installed in Utah so far. With a bunch of guys here that we've brought on board. And every single one of them's gone in. Everything's been doing great. They've been in for probably, I'd say about a month now. When they first got them, started installing them. We've been selling them all over the country, and they've done really, really well so far, especially in the testing phase. Because I know AO did have a unit that they were supposed to launch, was it 5 or 6 years ago? But it failed that testing in Roswell. They had a couple that failed it, and so they scratched it and started from scratch. So this tankless is a Lochinvar / AO Smith built unit. It is not anything to do with Takagi. So these units currently right now are being built out of the AO Smith factory in Japan, but production for these is going to be moved to Juarez, Mexico. So we're doing a $24 million expansion on the plant that's there. That's going to be just for tankless production. So we will be building them in North America.
So moving to Mexico with the intent of having it at the factory, Nashville, or
no, it'll be built in Mexico. So it'll be built there, so we will not have to have the transportation from China to the US.
Got it. Yeah, I think this, just to summarize, really this initial introduction was just to familiarize Northwest Pipe and all of you from a higher level, because this is only being offered to Northwest Pipe Fittings. So with that being said, we want to make sure that we rolled this out properly so that you guys can make a decision as if this is something you guys would be interested in, as it rolls out, to accommodate your current offerings, and then I guess you guys figure out where it best fits into that model. But initially, this was just for Northwest Pipe. And then if you guys do feel that you need contractor training, like Gail said, him and I'll connect. If you want us to be working with you, Sean, we sure can. Or Brandon, how you guys want to see that rolled out across the territory, we'll start working together on that. But again, initially, these are ready to ship. So if Northwest Pipe is interested, we can take orders. Maybe you already said that, Gail, and then we would start working on what that timeline looks like for when you guys will have them on the shelf to when we need to be training the contractors.
I believe we have some on order right now.
Or as soon as your logistics person gets off his ass and gets them ordered, yes.
I thought sales prevention.
Sales prevention, sorry.
So Brett, that means not on order, is that what you're saying?
That's what you read. You read my lips really well, Mr. Nathan.
What did we decide? I mean, there was a minimum order, right? Gail, is that
16, I believe.
16?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Sounds
16
good. You guys are
is,
thinking, Brett, maybe a couple per store or something to start?
Now, we'll bring them into Billings and then go from there.
Okay.
it's 16 FFA, but you can add tankless with boilers and water heaters and just meet the $35,000 minimum for shipping. So you can mix boilers, tank water heaters, and tankless all together on the same POs.
Yeah.
And meet the FFA.
Thanks.
And I take it these are ready to ship, so we could see them here in a couple weeks potentially.
Yeah, they're ready to ship right now.
Okay. Yeah, the contractors I talked to wanted some kind of familiarization, even if it's real similar to what we just went through, before they start putting them in. And then of course they're going to want some more detailed service training once they have some out in the field, but they did want some kind of familiarization.
Yeah,
how many, sorry, I'm interrupting somebody. I was just gonna ask, how many people that are installing Lochinvar boilers are also installing these types of products, or is it two different targets? Like how much redundancy do we have, you know?
Not necessarily two different target groups. I mean, the guys that come here, they put in Lochinvar boilers for sure. But,
Yeah,
you know, we're kind of trying to target those Navien guys that, I mean, Renai's, how should I say, their old copper heat exchanger that just got destroyed by hard water. And really, in our country, a lot of people got a bad taste in their mouth from Renai, and when Navien came out, they never looked back. So
sure.
they're not willing to give Renai a second chance. But the ones I have talked to are willing to try this Lochinvar.
And this unit
They want
stacks
some
up,
kind of familiarization first.
and this unit stacks up very, very well against that Navien NPE 240A.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Looks like 100%, yeah.
100% stacks up directly against that. You know, one thing that those Navien guys love is that little 2-liter tank that they have inside, that buffer tank, which Navien uses that to keep their temperature stable, where we're basically using our heat exchanger as a buffer tank to overshoot our set point and then temper it back down. So Navien's never been really good at tempering water, as they are kind of running everything through that buffer tank to kind of smooth it out before it leaves the unit.
What's the volume of water that stays in the heat exchanger on the Excalibur?
I'd have to look that up, but I believe it's just looking at that heat exchanger, I would say it's probably 3 liters.
Lays enough.
What was that?
I think Dave's phone's unmuted or something, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Gail, quick question. Are they going to look at putting this product on the VIP that they use for the boilers for customers?
I'm not sure at this point on that. That was a question that I had asked on that side, and have not got an answer back on that yet, but it's something that I'm pushing them towards, yes.
I think that would be a really good selling point for a lot of our customers that do take advantage of that.
Yes, definitely.
I think we're covered here in Billings, Gail. I don't know if anybody else has any questions for him.
If you guys have any questions after, feel free to reach out to me. Does everybody have my?
I've got one last question, Gail. Sorry, Nathan again here is, Sean, do you think this is something, or Gail, maybe anybody could answer? If we have that trainer coming out in September, can we just add a conversation piece into that same install service training, or not a good idea?
I think it's something they could mention, but I mean, they're already going to be pressed for time for those trainings as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, his day's gonna be pretty full, I think, with just boilers.
Got it.
Yeah. But so what I'd like to do too is when you get your first order in of the units, we can get one, we'll sample it out for you, and we can use that as a training demo unit. We can take it around the state and do trainings with that unit, show it off to people. If we have to do a few of them, I don't care. If we have to do 2 or 3, but at least we can have real units for guys to check out across the state.
Are you guys offering any like floor models that could be on a stand that could be at
Good
branches
question.
or whatnot?
Yeah, I'm working through that right now to get those demo units that are not quite working, but they have everything inside of them, so the guys can see the quality and everything.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty helpful. even just, you know, like a 1 hour, hour and a half deal like we just went through with a display unit opened up, so afterwards they can go and see, yeah, this is something I can see myself putting in.
Yeah, definitely. We can make that happen. So we do have some floor stickers and wall stickers that are pretty good size that show the inside of that unit too, that we can get out for you guys too.
Yep, send them to me or send them to Malik and he'll give them to me and I'll distribute them around the state.
Alrighty.
Any other materials you have? I sent out those PDFs to everybody yesterday, but any other materials or anything that you've got that we can share with people is always helpful.
Yeah, our marketing team's working on a whole bunch of different things right now for it. So as soon as I get that,
Yeah, is it in the portal, Gail, where I could go put a order to ship, you know, 50 to each office or something, or?
The literature is the wall and floor stickers. I'm not 100% sure if those are in yet. But I do have a box of them here. That
No, don't do that. If I can get in the portal, I can do that. Blake, is that easiest to just send them to each office, or you wanna take care of that?
I mean, if they got a portal where you can easily send it to the offices, that's fine, but if it's like they're not ready for full distribution and they want to just send them to me, I can put them on the transfer truck. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Seems like a lot of touches. Let me see if I can drop ship.
Yeah, well, we can work through our marketing team and have them ship them all direct if they're not on the portal. We can just do that.
All right, well,
They're in here, Gail. I see them. I can do, what would somebody want? 100 piece? Too many? 50 piece? What do you guys like? Of just the slicks, you know, the front and backs, little booklets.
I mean, if you're shipping to each store, I think 50 is probably plenty at each store.
Okay.
Hey, Gail, you'll send me recordings of this and the other one we did yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. All right, guys, thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
All right.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson.
Thanks for taking the opportunity and distributing this for us. It's exciting. So keep us posted.
Yeah, we'll get Brett to finish doing his job before he goes home today.
What? What? And what was the question?
Oh
That'd be great.
He brought lunch and dinner. We love you, Brett.
Yeah, I gotcha. All right, thank you, Gail.
All righty, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All righty,
Thanks, gentlemen. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
you too.
You too.
Bye.